To say Guyana posse and Jamaican, I don't like that. I just say Caribbean people. Right, because the thing change up now is CARICOM. Who come, who go, sometimes I come, you go, you come, I come. CARICOM. All right, I'm going all the way to Guyana and bring you a man who's been in the business for about 30 years. And the man coming to tell us how the music burns inside. Changing the rhythm a little bit, put your hand together, let's welcome on stage, Johnny Braff.
I want to dedicate a song to all the beautiful mothers out there. I want to wish you a happy, happy Mother's Day. God bless you.
Stop the music! It burns inside. Is a thing, it burns inside. If you should ever let it pass you by, oh, love is the cherry and to hold, and never, oh, never, never, never ever let it go. For rain may never ever pass away again. Hold on to love, my friends, and never, never let it go. Oh, love is the beat within your heart. Never, 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 baby, ever let it part. For rain may never ever pass away again. Oh, hold down to love, my friends, and never, never let it. I'm gonna talk to you now. Oh, love. Love is a thing, it burns inside. If you and everybody out there should ever let it pass you by, I'm telling you people, oh Lord have mercy. Love is to be within your heart. Oh yeah. And never, Lord knows never, never, never ever let it go. Listen to me. For rain may never ever pass away again. Hold on to love, my friends, and never, never let. Now sing along with me, please. Oh, love, everybody, sweet love. One more time, come on. Oh, love, sweet love. Oh, love.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I don't like to say Guyana posse and Jamaican. I don't like that. I just say Caribbean people. Right, because the thing change up now is CARICOM. Who come, who go, sometimes I come, you go, you come, I come. CARICOM. All right, I'm going all the way to Guyana and bring you a man who's been in the business for about 30 years. And the man coming to tell us how the music burns inside. Changing the rhythm a little bit, put your hand together, let's welcome on stage, Johnny Braff.
I want to dedicate a song to all the beautiful mothers out there. I want to wish you a happy, happy Mother's Day. God bless you.
Stop the music! decide if you should ever let it pass you by. Oh, love is the cherry and to hold, and never, oh, never, 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 ever let it go. For rain may never ever pass away again. Hold on to love, my friends, and never, never let it go. Oh, love is to be within your heart, and never, 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 baby, ever let it part. For rain may never ever pass away again. Oh, all down to love, my friends, and never, never let it. I'm gonna talk to you now. Oh, love, love is a thing. It burns inside. If you and everybody out there should ever let it pass you by, I'm telling you, people, oh Lord have mercy. Love is to be within your heart. Oh yeah. And never, Lord knows, never, 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 ever let it go. Listen to me. For rain may never ever pass away again. Hold on to love, my friends, and never, never let. Now sing along with me, please. Oh, love, everybody, sweet love. One more time, come on. Oh, love, sweet love. Oh, love, sweet love.
Oh, yes. Yes. It is Politics 101, one of the great voices of all time, the Johnny Braff, one of Guyana's gifts to the world, precious gifts. Just as when we hear that national anthem, or we hear Not a Blade of Grass, or we hear Hilton Emmedine's Beautiful Guyana, when we hear, it burns inside. If you're a Guyanese, you stop and you look around because it is very much part of our Guyanese tapestry. Johnny Braff, as I said, one of our great gifts to the world. As Professor Nettleford said of all Caribbean, we haven't built skyscrapers, and we haven't created atom bomb and nuclear bombs and so forth. What we have given to the world, our minds, our intellect, whether it is through song or dance or sport or academia, or as nurses and teachers, as culinary people cooking for the world. We have given the world our creativity. Thank God for Guyana and the West Indies, the Caribbean. Welcome to Politics 101. Please share the link. Please share the link as we celebrate our Guyana. We celebrate our Guyana, our Caribbean. We are the world. We are as much part of the world as everybody else. We stand shoulder to shoulder and give of our creativity to the world. Wherever we go, whether it's in the United States or Europe or Latin America or Africa, wherever we go, we have always stood tall because we have something to say. We have something to tell the world. We have our story to tell, and that story comes out of our lived experience, our experience of struggle, our experience of joy, our experiences of confronting the odds, falling down but getting up, dusting ourselves off, and always ready to pull forward. Thank you all so much for taking the time to come with us another evening, another night, another day. Thank all of you who took the time out to celebrate with me yesterday, virtually and otherwise, and to send out happy birthday wishes. I see some of you are still sending out happy birthday wishes here. I'm usually in Guyana at this time of year. Delayed it a little bit this year. And so I spent my birthday in one of my adopted homes, in this case, Arizona. And much to my surprise, my friends descended on me yesterday afternoon, not knowing that they planned a little party, a little hangout. Good evening, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Thomas Robertson, your brother and his family. They were very much part of the little get together yesterday evening, and helped me to celebrate another day, another birthday. And I am grateful. I'm grateful for them and grateful to them. You walk the world and you do what you have to do, and you move from day to day. And there are sometimes you touch people in ways that you do not realize, and as Dion Warwick and others said, that's what friends are for. That's what friends are for, as Dion Warwick sing. And my friends, they came out yesterday afternoon and celebrated with me. Thank you all. Thank all of you on Facebook and otherwise who celebrated with me. I'm not a big birthday person, a big celebrating person. But as you go older, you come to appreciate that there are things you may not pay attention to, but you live in a world that pays attention to those things, and you have to. Yes. Good evening and good night to all of you. Those of you joining us from Guyana, always very glad to have you. Always very glad to have you. Those of us from outside of Guyana, whether we in our Caribbean, or where we have taken Guyana with us, whether it's Brooklyn and the Bronx and Queens, wherever, in New Jersey, Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, wherever we are, wherever we're in Toronto, Canada, wherever we are, whether we're in the United Kingdom, we have always taken our Guyana, our Caribbean with us. Always trying to make something out of our experience. Always trying to make something out of our experience. We go wherever we go, we take the carnival with us. Wherever we go, we take the food with us. We take ourselves wherever we go, but always looking back at home, always looking back at home. The movement of Jab people, Exodus, always moving, but always staying close to our roots, always staying close to our roots. Wonderful, beautiful people, wonderful world, beautiful people. That was the first Caribbean album, musical album made It was made by Jimmy Cliff way back in 1972. First album, you all are learning something here tonight. Before that, we made little, what they call them, 45s or whatever they call them. But the first full album was called Wonderful World, Beautiful People by Jimmy Cliff, the first reggae superstar, not Bob Marley, Jimmy Cliff. Always remember that. And that album included a lot of the songs, the theme songs from the movie The Harder They Come, which again was the first Caribbean movie, The Harder They Come, starring Jimmy Cliff. And the theme songs of that movie, sung by Jimmy Cliff, was on that album, Wonderful World, Beautiful People. Bob Marley, of course, would do Catch a Fire the next year. But I noticed my brother Keith Beresford is on, and he's much more of a musical historian than I am, and he would, of course, remember those facts. It's always a wonder why we in Guyana are not up there with Jamaica and Trinidad as far as recording music is concerned, because in many regards we were way ahead of them in terms of producing music, quality music. We started our program tonight with one of our national anthems, It Burns Inside by Johnny Braff. And that whole generation really made good music. And Guyana was the Mecca in those days, the Caribbean Mecca. A lot of the old timers will remember some of the great American singers, Black American singers, gracing our shores in the 1960s and the 1970s. What do I know? I was a little boy. Of course, I do remember King Fighter coming in those days. We did have in Buxton a cinema before they moved it out of the village. It was owned by Indian Guyanese, but in those days it was in Buxton, and I lived not too far from it. I remember King Fighter, bringing Suki. Okay, you remember that? You all remember that song, Suki? It was a lady from Dutch Guyana, I think, and he brought her. And I remember peeping through and see the big people going in. But we were a mecca for music. We were a mecca for good music. And where places like Jamaica got in front of us was because they did have a recording studio. In the case of Jamaica, they had Studio One, the first Jamaican-owned recording studio. And a lot of the early artists got their start at Studio One. And we didn't have the equivalent of a Studio One. If we did have, I guarantee you all, we would have been way up there. When the Calypsonians finished Carnival, they used to come to Guyana, not nowadays when they finish Carnival, they gone up to New York and Europe. They used to come to Guyana. Sparrow used to come there and spend a lot of time at Fraternity in Tiger Bay. And that's why he sang that calypso, during the disturbances in the 1960s. Yes, of course, Eddie Grant is right up there. Of course, Eddie Grant is right. Eddie Grant and the Equals in the 70s. Big in Europe. We if we had a recording studio, I think per capita, when I was a boy in the 1970s, per capita, when you talk about string band, per capita, Guyana probably had the most string band in the whole wide world. I think we were counting, and we count up to 20-something. Ezzy Rockcliffe remembers the number of bands that we had in the 1970s, string band. A dime a dozen in Guyana. And I would think per capita, given our population, we probably had the most string band in the world. In the world, you take a place like Linden, had about three of those, about four bands, just Linden alone. And those of you remember the Cannonball and Jet Stars, and there are a couple of others. The Linden people can remind me. But we of course are part of the musical family of the Caribbean. Eddie Grant later on wanted to open a recording studio in Guyana, and didn't get to for all kinds of reasons. You hear part of it was political, etc. I don't know. You hear these stories. And he eventually went to Barbados and opened the studio there, and had his own record label, Ice Records, and he recorded some of the top Caribbean artists. He recorded there. Gabi recorded there. Black Stallion recorded there. A lot of people recorded there. But we do. The person who I would say the big historian, God is named Professor. He has a book on the musical history of Guyana. God, his name is escaping me now. But he has done a lot of research on Guyanese music, and in that real resourceful book, in Guyanese music, you can find a lot of information there on Guyanese music. Big thing. I have the opportunity now to teach not music, but to teach lyrics of music, the political lyrics of music. So I always tell my students I don't teach music. What I teach is the lyrics, using the political lyrics, the lyrics of our music, as text. One of my big classes is Bob Marley, Reggae and Resistance. I also teach a comparative course on what I call political music, reggae, calypso, and hip hop. So one gets the opportunity to use the music of these humble girls and boys, black and brown people, making music. And today in the universities, young people are studying them to get a sense of the world. I teach that Bob Marley class as a kind of introduction to the Caribbean. It's the introduction to our Caribbean stream. Those who would like to emphasize on the Caribbean, and teach that. So quite a lot there. My own introduction, I remember Professor Gordon Roller. One night as a boy, I was lying in bed, and the radio was on, and they used to have a program. Ken Cosby used to have that program, Night Ride. This is Night Ride. It used to be like after 10 o'clock and so on. Yes, Professor Nettleford. I noticed somebody citing him here. Very important in terms of reggae music. Professor Nettleford was one of the first persons that went into the Rastafarian community and documented a lot of stuff there, and we are internally great. He's one of my intellectual heroes, Professor Nettleford. He's the one who, as I said, says that we have not created skyscrapers and so on, but we've given the world our minds. And I remember it was way back in 1992, I think, 1972. Sorry, I just gotten into high school, and in those days, radio was radio. Radio was radio. I think one of my friends is on here tonight, Colin Burke, Colin Garnett. We were schoolboys and girls, and we were really into radio. And Colin and I used to listen to a lot of radio. In fact, he would tell you that a lot of our vocabulary came from listening to those radio announcers. And we would take turns. He would listen to Radio Demerara, and I would listen to GBS and so on in the mornings before we go to school. And then when we get to school, we would exchange notes and so on. So we were really into radio. And one night I was lying in bed and the radio was on, and Night Ride was on. Ken Cosby used to say, Night Ride. Ken Cosby, of course, is one of our great dramatists. And he had Professor Gordon Roller on. And Gordon Roller was tracing the history of Trinidad from 1956, when Dr. Eric Williams got back to Trinidad and launched the PNM. He was tracing Trinidad history from 56 to 72 through the music of the Mighty Sparrow. And I had never heard anything like that in my life. I grew up with music because I lived near a rum shop and they had a shoebox there. And so you always hear calypso and reggae music and soul music and all those stories. But I never thought that politics could, thing. And from that night, I started to listen to lyrics and pay attention to lyrics. Because all these songs we were hearing from Sparrow, I didn't know they had political content. And thanks to Professor Rollier, it changed my whole perspective of music and sports and started to see politics in them. I had the opportunity, of course, of meeting Professor Rollier at conferences when I myself became an academic and would present papers on political music at Caribbean conferences, and he was able to give me a few tips and so on. He died earlier this year, but really a pioneer in the academics, the academics of calypso music. Went to Trinidad after he finished studying and stayed there. Gordon Rollier, very, very top Caribbean academic from our country, Guyana. And so many, we have given this world, we have given the Caribbean so many academics. My late sister and I, used to say one of the problems with Guyana is that we produce too many bright people. We produce too many bright people. When you think of a generation of Forbes Burnham and Sidney King and Martin Carter and Cheddy Jagan and all of them, and these, apart from being politicians, they were bright men and women. And they all were in this party called the PPP. And then later on, of course, the next generation of academics, they were Rodneys and Clive Thomases and Rupert Rupnarayan and all of them were in the WPA. And I, as a boy, remember, coming into the WPA and, as I climbed up the ladder and became closer and closer top. And you would sit in these meetings with these fellas from, Thomas and Rodney before he died, and Rupnarayan and Josh Ramsamy and Kwayan and Andaye and Bunny. And you were listening to them talking politics, and there you are, as we were young, teenagers, Karen D'Souza, Nigel Westmans, myself, and so on, listening to them, and you're in awe because you're wondering, what are you doing here? What is it you can say when it's your turn to speak? Because all of these people, and I remember people like Takuma Ogunse, who was not an academic. He was, of course, and still is, he would tell you, a market vendor, but he would sit there and go toe-to-toe with them. And that gave us some courage that the younger people coming in. Ogunse was a little bit older than us, and we caught our thing. In Buxton, Kwayana would hold classes with us and in political economy and culture and so on. And you don't know what to say. And there was one chap named John Cromwell. He may be on this program. John was so bright. When John opened him out to talk, them word long from Buxton to Georgetown. And we were all age group, but he was a cut above the rest of us. And he would be asking Kwayana and challenging Kwayana on these philosophical issues. And you said, John, in your mind, but you got courage. You got courage from those guys, people like Kimani Nehusi and Theo Morris and those chaps, Kwesi and Kofi, Ras Michael June. They were older than us, but they gave us a little courage because they would stand up and really. Good evening to you. Just a little bit reminiscing here on our contributions to the culture and the politics and the academics, the intellectual fervor of our country. We are Guyana. We are Guyana. We are Guyana. We are the Caribbean. And we have something to offer the world. We have something to say to the world. We have something to tell the world. We've always had something to say to the world because we are part of the world. We are part of the people. C.L.R. James, of course, one of our greatest intellect, he says, the Caribbean was the meeting place of all these cultures, India, Africa, Madeira, Portugal, China, the indigenous people all meeting in these little Caribbean spaces. Guyana may be larger in terms of land mass, but in terms of population, we relatively small. And so these little colonial outposts, but really complex place, because we are in the midst of building the so-called New World. There'll be no capitalism without the Caribbean. Dr. Eric Williams wrote that seminal book, Capitalism and Slavery, arguing that British capitalism came out of West Indian slavery in the West Indies, that's where the capital came for the investment in industry in Europe. He's writing this in 1938, and he's making that argument. It still remains the classical text in terms of the economics of slavery and capitalism. And he's saying that European capitalism has its basis in those little islands and mainland places in our Caribbean. So we are part of what they're calling modernity. And so therefore we are a modern people. We are a modern people. We have to be. And so when you see the complexity and the quality of the human beings that we create in our Caribbean and our Guyana, it comes from that experience. Turning the experience of enslavement and later indentureship, turning that in to the raw material for a new understanding of the world, a new understanding of the world. And so in 2023, and we are coming to the end of this year, it's been quite a year for us in Guyana. In 2023, we faced down the challenges. And in many cases, our people are ahead of the leaders. One of the things this Venezuela thing has brought to the fore is how our leaders have, in a sense, retrogressed, and how our people have progressed. There's a genius in our Guyanese people. A genius. I mean, we have to be genius. Uprooted from a place like Guyana, going to a hostile place like New York, or Toronto, or Washington, D.C., or Miami, or Atlanta, and surviving in those places and putting down roots there. There's a particular genius it takes to move from where you are and to go to a place and go to a new space, and not only beginning to live there, but transforming that space. Brooklyn is what it is today, Brooklyn, because of Guyanese and West Indians. Brooklyn is what it is today because of Guyanese and West Indians. When people started to go to New York there and Brooklyn, and before that Harlem, our people started to go to Harlem. The first great migration from the Caribbean at the turn of the century. This is what took people like Garvey and a lot of people to Harlem in those days, which was the center of Black life in America, the Harlem Renaissance, of course. It was not just a renaissance of the human beings individually, but the kind of community that they were able to build in a place like Harlem, and then later on Brooklyn and the Bronx. And then laterally, our Indian Guyanese brothers and sisters came and went to Queens and did the same thing. But there's a genius of our people that we often don't celebrate. And following in the footsteps of somebody like Walter Rodney, who has argued that the West Indian, the Black academic, has to immerse herself and himself into the lives of ordinary people, because that's where we come from. Professor Rex Netherford used to say, we all came from there. George Lamin would refer to us as the people from the bottom. In Jamaica, they say the cane piece. In Guyana, we say we come from the villages. We all came from there. We may now live in some of these metropolitan spaces all over the world, but we have taken those experiences with us. And so it is a tribute to our genius as a people that we could survive in a place, a hostile place, like Guyana and the Caribbean in the first place. And as I said, transforming those places. That is why when Venezuela now makes its foolish claim to our country, defending that territory is much more than politics. And I think those leaders who sat down in St. Vincent the other day, what they didn't have was the feeling of what it is to be a Guyanese. And because we were a difficult place, that feeling doesn't always seem apparent. But there is a feeling. To be Guyanese is more a feeling. As I said, if you walk any part of the world and you hear it burns inside, you look around, you jump, your eye open big, because you're here in Guyana. And that is why when they sat down at the airport in St. Vincent, a lot of us were anxious because we were fearful that they would give away Guyana. And our fears were not misplaced, because in many regards, our leaders who were there, our leaders who were there, gave away part of Guyana last week. They gave it away. Not the physical territory. They gave away the narrative. The new narrative now is that Guyana is disputed territory. My God, from 1899 to 2023. Guyana was not disputed territory. No. Our President Irfan Ali has put his signature to a piece of paper that says that Guyana is now disputed territory. And I want you all to understand the seriousness of that. Some of the scholars and the technocrats and so on will tell you all, it doesn't matter, you know, in international relations, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I don't mind that talk, but you don't talk like that to people who have a feeling about what Guyana is. And Guyana is not disputed territory. And when our leader affixed his signature, whether he did it on the duress or not, and we rather suspect he did it on the duress, but because he himself may not be afflicted by that feeling, that Guyanese feeling he put his signature there. I don't think Burnham would have put his signature to something like that. I don't think Jagan would have put his signature to something like that. I don't think Kwayana would have put his signature to something like that. Irfan Ali did. Put his signature to a document that says 2/3 of our territory is disputed. And I have a serious problem with that. Our party, the Working People's Alliance, put out a statement and we were very clear. I think we are the only party who made it very clear that we are uncomfortable with that St. Vincent meeting and the document that came out of it. And I noticed one of the cheerleaders, one of the propagandists, replied to us. And what was his reply? His reply is that we don't have the facts. Only Irfan Ali has the facts. And because we don't have the facts, we can come to the conclusion that we come to. That there are facts that Irfan Ali had that made him sign that document. And that, in security issues, he's saying that you never tell the people the truth. That is what that chap wrote on paper. Randy Posado, whatever his name is. Had no answer to the WPA. That's all he could tell us. Because we made it very clear. That you do not go and sit down and sign away your narrative without getting anything in return, anything tangible. But you shouldn't sign away your narrative, period. Whether you get something in return or not. Because your narrative is your story. What the Venezuelans have done is that they have gotten their narrative down on paper, and it's now an official document, the Venezuelan narrative. The Venezuelan narrative is the ICJ has no jurisdiction. That Venezuela belongs, Essequibo belongs to Venezuela. That's the Venezuelan narrative. And in many regards, they have gotten that document to give their narrative some legs. The Venezuelans have walked the whole thing back to 1966. Because the Geneva Agreement of 1966 took us to the ICJ. The Secretary General said, let the ICJ determine the validity of 1899. And that's where the matter is. And in this Argyle Declaration, the Secretary General of the United Nations is an observer. In the Geneva Agreement of 1966, the Secretary General was the general. The Secretary General is now replaced by Ralph Gonzalez. As you all know, I've said on this program all the time, I love Ralph. But Ralph is compromised. On this issue of Guyana's territorial integrity, Ralph is compromised. The aggressor, the bully, Ralph Gonzalez, Mia Motley, and the prime ministers all of the Caribbean, they're all indebted to Venezuela. But more than that, they've decided that that indebtedness will muzzle them. They cannot say, Venezuela, you are wrong in your designs on Guyana's territory. Essequibo is not disputed. They cannot bring themselves to say that. What they in fact says is that Venezuela, Essequibo, is disputed territory. That's what the Venezuelans want. And the Venezuelans got that from them. What did Ali get for Guyana? Nothing of value. You know, on the face of it, they got Venezuela to say that it will pull back on its aggression to Guyana, its aggression towards Guyana. But you didn't need to go and get Guyana to sit down, to get Ali to sit down with Maduro, and to put on paper that Guyana, that Essequibo is disputed territory. You didn't have to do that to get Venezuela to pull back. Ralph Gonzalez and others should have been doing backroom diplomacy and talking to Venezuela behind the scenes to get Venezuela to back down without Guyana giving up anything. I am split in whether Irfan Ali, the individual, went there against his best interest and his best judgment, or whether he went there because he lacks a proper intellectual understanding of the problem. Clearly, he must have been advised by many people. He must have been pressured by his Caribbean comrades. He must have been pressured by, I don't know if the United States had anything to do with it, to go there and to meet Maduro. He obviously was pressured. But a leader has to be able to listen to all sides, listen to the exhortations from all sides, and then come to an agreement, an understanding, a decision based on the interests of his country. I'm afraid Ali didn't do that. And I'm glad that Aubrey Norton didn't go to St. Vincent. Because had he gone to St. Vincent, he would have had nothing to do with what got into that document. And he would have had to take equal responsibility with Ali for that document. I'm glad he didn't. He may have saved himself and the opposition tremendously there. There's a lot to talk about standing with Guyana, you know. The PPP people are saying that, you know, at this time we should not say anything or do anything that divide us. Well, nonsense. We are divided. We are a country without a nation. And we are trying to pull together a semblance of nationhood. That's what we are doing at this time. We are calling for that which is deep within us so that we can stand up. And even if we are not a nation with deep collective roots, we can at least put on some wings at this time to begin to flap like a nation. And we do not believe that we should take our feet from off the accelerator when it comes to beating back what the PPP has been doing. The PPP is not taking its foot off this accelerator. Even as they're calling on us to stand with them against Venezuela, they're not standing with us. They're not standing with the workers. You cannot be giving public servants 6.3% increase, 6.3% of $79,000. I was talking to an immigration officer last night, and she told me she was earning $79,000. And 6.3% of $79,000, you all work out the math. And she was telling me that in times like these, they have to transform from immigration officers to police. $79,000. 400 US dollars. Those of you who live in the United States are acquainted with how the US money work. How can you be calling us one Guyana? How can you be telling us we must down our differences when you are increasing those differences by assaulting our people? The very people you are asking to stand with you against an external enemy, you are beating them, beating. That 6.3% is beating the public servants. You are beating public servants. The soldiers that you're asking to go to fight for you, you're beating their sisters, beating their mothers who are working in the ministries, who are working as teachers and nurses. You're beating them because that's what 6.3% is, or 5%. You all do the math, and then when you take all the taxes from it, you all do the math. You're assaulting your people, even as you're asking them to stand together as a nation. Randy Passat said the WPA should not talk about the political and ethnic sensitivities about who joined the army. We must not talk the truth. We must not talk the truth. The fact of the matter is that Africans are the people who are generally in the army. And the presence of Africans in the army bring no military benefits to Black people, as the Indian leaders, Ravi Dev and them, used to like to say. That Black people have guns in their hands as members of the army and the police, and that's a threat to Indians. No. The army and the police with guns in their hands, as we notice, in many regards are as much a threat to Black people as they are to Indians. In many respects, the police, for example, more of a threat to Black people than they are to Indians. So we have now seen that African people with bearing arms as part of the coercive arm of the state is not a benefit for Black people. In fact, in many regards, a threat to Black people. But we are saying, when it comes now to fighting Venezuela, we are calling to weaponize that army. You're hearing now from people in the army that the weapons that they have there are mostly from North Korea. All the weapons, I suspect those weapons are sent back in Burnham PNC days, if they're North Korean arms. And all those things, I understand, are outdated, they're rusty, and so on. And this government has not been spending money to modernize the armory, update the armory of the army, the GDF. Why? Because they fear that if they weaponize the army, they're weaponizing Black people. No, I'm saying give more ethnic mix is a legitimate fear. But we have noticed over the decades that the army is not an ethnic threat to Indians. That has now been proven. The police is not an ethnic threat to Indians. And so we are therefore saying, beef up the arms in the army. No. If you don't do that, you're basically sending our brothers and sisters to go and kill themselves, because you're sending them with old, outdated arms. You're sending them to kill themselves. And if we want a fighting force, we don't expect our army to beat Venezuela if Venezuela were to make any move, but we expect them to resist Venezuela. And the army, it's time now that the army must look like Guyana. As I said, Rafi Dev and them used to say, Indians must go and join the army. And their reason for that, their rationale for that, was that the army was a threat to Indian people. And to make the army not a threat to Indian people must join the army. So that they were calling for balance in the army. And my response to that argument a decade or more ago was that if you all want to integrate the army, you all have to integrate money too. So money must not only be with Indians, money must also be with Africans. If the army must not only be Africans, it must be Indians. That was my view then. And I still hold that view that we must integrate the money. But as far as the army is concerned, I'm saying bring the Indians in tomorrow. Bring them in. Because the army must begin to look like Guyana. For all kinds of reasons. It's going to improve morale. Black soldiers are no longer going to be able to say we alone out here fighting while Indian people making money and we black people not making money. The government has to move to bring its supporters into the army. The time has come for that. And we mustn't play politics with that. It's going to be good for Guyana. That when Guyanese look around, they see a fighting force, an army that looks like them. The PPP must move away from the strategy of just having the leadership of the army look like Guyanese. And in many regards, they're trying to get the leadership of the army to be more Indian. That has been their strategy. And we are saying it's not the leadership of the army itself has to now look like Guyana. And that would be good for the PPP. Because it means if the army now got Indian people, that should encourage them to spend money and to put better arms in the army. These are not things we should be whispering. You know, in Guyana, anything that got to do with race, we like to whisper it. So as we are going forward, we have to recognize what happened in St. Vincent. Our government has given away the Guyana narrative, and we hope have not endangered Guyana. Because the official narrative now is that Essequibo is disputed territory. in a sense, we are challenging the 1899 arbitration. The Argyle Declaration challenges the 1899 arbitration. Prior to that, Venezuela alone was challenged in 1899. Guyana never challenged in 1899. Now, with putting our signature to a document that said the territory is disputed, we are now challenging the 1899 arbitration. It's on paper. It's on paper, it's there. Many people are asking whether it will not compromise our case at the ICJ. Our case before the ICJ is that the territory is not disputed. In the Argyle Declaration, the territory is now disputed. All that nonsense I see some of them writing in the paper, you know, diplomacy worked and all that. I sometimes, what angers me sometimes is the way they try to fool poor people. There's nothing in that document that should make us comfortable. I happen to believe that the Venezuelans in the short to medium term want to get some kind of control over Essequibo. I don't think they realistically feel that they can invade Essequibo, invade Guyana. But I think they're looking for some kind of compromise. Where they can have some kind of joint control over who invests, so that if a company goes in there, the company has to get the permission from both Guyana and Venezuela. Some people are making the valid point. Why would Venezuela want Guyana's oil? Venezuela got far, far more oil reserves than we have. But, you know, there is greed. They want more. But I'm asking you all not to fall for that argument, that the fact that that document says that the territory is disputed is not a big deal. It is a big deal. Because you're giving away your reason for being. Venezuela wants us to say the territory is disputed. That is their whole argument. And if the territory is disputed, then we have to come to some agreement to settle the dispute. No, the dispute was settled in 1899. There's nothing to settle. If we follow and stand by the 1899 arbitration. Irfan Ali and the PPP may have given the Venezuelans the sea lane that they wanted to get out to the Atlantic. Because all the crying and saying Dr. Barton Scotland and other people, the Venezuelans have said that the PPP made an agreement with them for the sea lane. So it's not just Jagdio in the video that we have seen him on, where he's waxing lyric about giving Venezuela the sea lane. They went further than that. Our understanding is that they actually agreed to give the people the sea lane. They just never got the chance to bring it to the National Assembly. I think the PPP is more disposed to giving Venezuela something that Venezuela wants. That kind of transactional mentality, I think, these youngsters in the PPP are into. And I am asking you all to be fearful of that. These people are going to sell us out if we allow them to. They're going to sell part of Guyana with us there. It was so easy to get them to go to a meeting without any preconditions. The people have not agreed, even in the document, to pull back the decrees. The decree that Maduro did after the referendum, there's no mention of the decree in the Argyle Declaration. There's this broad thing that they will not be aggressive, they will ease their aggression. Nothing specific about those decrees. There is law and there is politics. And there is the mixture of law and politics, the convergence of law and politics on this issue. And they're inseparable. The law of the situation and the politics of the situation. International law, international politics are intertwined. I want to thank you all for coming out again tonight, as always. And I want to thank you all those who wish me happy birthday. As I mentioned last week, I'm accepting birthday gifts. Please make a contribution to Politics 101. The digits are on there, the Cash App, the PayPal, the Zelle, all of that story is there. It's our end of the year fundraising. You know, we do try to keep these platforms going, and your little contributions matter. There's some of you who I have to thank for your contributions. You know who you are. We do the first names. I left that list on my other desk, but I shall make sure tomorrow I have that list to thank you all. There are some of you who we have to thank, who have made your donations to our program. I'm urging the rest of you, please make your donations, however small, please make your donation to keep us going. It's part of the struggle. It's part of the struggle to keep us going. So here we are, still reeling from the St. Vincent meeting. And they're trying to pull wool over our eyes. Good evening, Dennis Atwell. I haven't seen you in a little while, but it's good to know that you're still around, my brother. My sister, Coquet, from out there in New Jersey, via Buxton, back down side. Good evening. Good evening. They have sold out part of our argument. They've now compromised the 1899 arbitration award by saying that the territory is disputed. No, it's not disputed. And that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. And we ought not to give that up. We can't let up on the PPP. That's what they want us to let up on them. We cannot let up on them because they're not letting up on our people. Give the damn public servants what they deserve. You can give Venezuela a whole argument. You can give them, because they wanted us to say that the territory is disputed. You give them that. But you can't give your own workers a smile for Christmas. No wonder the guys just call them Jacobats. They're worse than Jacobats. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all again for the birthday wishes. I had a good time with my friends yesterday. Thank you all. I usually spend the birthday in Buxton. This year, I'm a little bit late in making my way to the Mecca. In making my way there, a little bit late. So I didn't get to spend it with my people in Buxton this year. But I know I was there in spirit. I was there in spirit. And again, thank you all for all the birthday wishes. And thank you all those who have made a little contributions or big or medium contributions to Politics 101. We're grateful, and we look forward to receiving the contributions from the rest of us. We'll be back tomorrow night. This is, of course, Christmas week, the week going into Christmas. I know people got to go and do the cleaning up and the putting away and get the blinds. I know I haven't heard from people what the story is on the streets of Guyana in terms of people shopping and so on. Money and debt, money and debt. That is the thing of the matter. But, we still do Christmas. We still do Christmas. So it's the week when we prepare. The week when we prepare. So I'll be back tomorrow night. I think I have a guest tomorrow night. I can't remember right now who it is, but we'll be back tomorrow night and we'll continue our discussion on where we go. 2023 is almost over. It's almost over, and we're into 2024. New year, same old story. But we're gonna make it through. We're gonna make it through because we are what we are, and that's the way it's going to be. You can't educate I for no equal opportunity. Talking about my freedom, our freedom is what it is, but it is.